Hey everyone. So, in my banner review, thank you very much, by the way, first and foremost, for all your comments. I really appreciate your feedback and your comments very, very much. So, thank you very, very much, guys. You are the best. And someone asked me whether a EX+3 Terra team outperforms a EX+1 Faris team? And I think this is a pretty good question and one I'd like to visit. So this video is all about how does EX+3 Terra together with Ifrit Rain perform versus the EX+1 Faris plus Bards combo. So a fire team versus a wind team. This is more towards dark visions. And now let's move aside that the next dark visions is going to heavily lean into the wind team just because Bards provides plant killer and the next boss is a plant. Let's put this aside for a second, right? And just look at this isolated case of EX+3 Terra versus EX+1 Faris. Who performs better? This is the team. It is going to be a standard team for most of the dark visions going forward. Now, we cannot simulate this with Edgar or Berserker, whichever you prefer. For the next dark visions, I'm gonna prefer Edgar just because I don't have Berserker. But yeah, this is probably one of your standard teams going forward for the next few dark visions. So we've got Zorn, who is going to fulfill the average role of probably passive provoke evading. I gave him Craftsman's Secret Book. This is more so for the fire team, to be honest, than for the wind team, as you'll be seeing. There is a possibility on the wind team to just imbue Zorn on the very turn. He's spreading the buffs. But with the fire team, there's a less chance that you can imbue fire unless you're spending one turn with last gen to shift and imbue himself with fire, which might not be the best idea if you need resistances. So we gave him the Craftsman's Secret Book. It is an easy Trust Master to get. It's, I believe, from a 4-star unit. Just get it. I've used it so many times in the last 5 or half a year, even in Dark Visions. It's super good. Other than that, not really geared towards anything. So Mastermind Zone is never going to chip in much damage. Probably going forward in Dark Visions, he is going to chip in damage and has to, just because the new damage cap is going to be 9.999999 etc. billion. So every ounce of damage is going to matter. And you'd have to gear Mastermind Zone properly, I believe. But for the simplicity of this video, let's leave it at that. And I'm gonna leave it at that as well for the Terra team, because we're looking at the Faris team, but the changes to the Terra and Faris team, they are minuscule. The only two units that we are changing are Bards and Faris for Ifrit Rain and Terra, obviously. So next up is Lightning. Now I put this on the left hand. It doesn't really matter whether that's in the left hand or the right hand, if I'm not mistaken. So her base form is completely geared towards DPS. Now, I don't have the good STMRs. I don't have Black Sparky. I don't have Rain and Venus STMR. I don't have Furion's Bow. I don't have Extant Cleome's STMR. So this actually limits my gearing choices. And it is too bad, to be honest. I'd really like to have Extant Cleome's STMR or Black Sparky or Rain and Venus STMR. I could get Black Sparky, but Black Sparky without item world buffs is kind of useless. I do have 3 Agent Olives. Agent Olive? Yeah, I believe Agent Olive is the correct one for Black Sparky. And I could just USC Prism or Omniprism the remaining one. That's not the issue here. Or I could use my 50% STMR Mogul to get it. This is probably even the best option, just using this 50% STMR Mogul, because I've had this lying around for the last 3 months and never used it so far, so might as well. But this is something I'd consider once we have the item world again. Other than that, abilities, the usual. She's at 300 LB damage, not quite close to capping attack percent. Again, something such as Black Sparky would fix this easily. Can't do this just now. And obviously, if you're using a greatsword, we are also using Cloud's Vision card. Brave Shift, which she'll be starting in, is geared towards LB Fill, as you can see. She might as well function as your passive provoke evasion tank. This also works if you need to hide zone constantly, so just like we did the last couple of Dark Visions. The February Dark Vision was an example to the rule, because Kokurayu did literally nothing. But all the other bosses you had to hide zone, to dispel the team from the debuff, etc, etc. So she might actually work as a passive provoke evasion tank, and you'd gear her towards that. Alright, now next up is Warrior of Light Bards, base form geared towards DPS. And as you can see, he's got a lot of good gear. We're not gonna use LB too much, it's just for LB filling, to be honest. So as you can see, full attack, full equipment, true dual wield. He's got 300 LB damage, although we're not gonna use this LB, to be quite honest. And yeah, 2 equipment slots are open for more killers if you need. And the cool thing is, he's a 250 plant just like that, which is very, very good. So just 1 plant killer materia is enough for him, and you'll be good to go. And the rest is up to you. For Dark Visions, we usually need some resistances. There you go, you have a free slot for that. And he's using Riku's Vision card. Now keep in mind, I do have 3 Riku Vision cards at this point, all at level 10, so my build might not be just that easy to be copied. But you could use any other Vision card with 100 attack or more, but there's only Riku's Vision card that is the best for this case. Alright, and his Brave Shift is entirely geared towards LB Fill, as you can see. So, and also I should mention, you might want Evocation Gauge, but I found out it's not really necessary to boost Evocation Gauge Fill. I thought it was necessary, but it is not, absolutely not. You don't need bonds with the Aeons or Behemoth synergy. I just put this in if you actually wanted to use some Evo stuff. Alright, let's move on to last gen. No real reason why I'm not wearing a second weapon. You could use him, for example, if you're using Bushido Freedom, for example. This would be the best way to do this. You'd give him Bushido, and he needs 1 weapon so he doesn't overkill anybody. I've had this issue before, so 1 weapon is pretty good. You'd then just eliminate one of these abilities, might eliminate Hero's Bow, Advanced Weaponry, etc. Really doesn't matter, and the reason is we don't have to use Father Son bonds, which halves his LB gauge, takes off half his LB gauge. We don't use this skill with last gen, so he has only 1 LB to do. This is the final one, and you're guaranteed to have his LB ready by that time. It's going to be turn 6 anyway, or turn, I believe, 4 for the Terra team. His LB is going to be ready no matter what, so you can safely take off any of these abilities and put in Bushido Freedom, for example. He's also using Riku's Vision card, by the way, which is why I mentioned I have 3 of them, and this might not be the easiest build to replicate. Brave Shift really didn't gear this towards anything, to be honest. As you can see, I'm using Dark Ragnarok, which sounds cool on paper. It's super EP-ny. In a real-world application or real Dark Visions application, you'd substitute this for a killer weapon such as Warrior of Light Bards' STMR. I do have 2, and I suggest you get a second copy as well, because it's that good, especially for the upcoming Dark Visions, as Bards' STMR got upgraded to have Plant and Beast Killer now, so that is a huge upside. Other than that, as you can see, not really geared towards anything. It's just really a maximum amount of damage and 300 LB. He still has 300% Dragon Killer, which is cool, and 125 Plant, but that's not going to cut it for the next Dark Vision final boss. That's going to be a Plant. We're going to need more, and we'd use another Bards STMR, for example, and other Plant killers. Alright, and pretty much the star of the show is Faris. Now keep in mind, I don't have her STMR rate. I could have gotten it, sure, but I wanted to show you a more applicable one because we are assuming I was specifically asked for a Faris at EX+1, and an EX+1 Faris does not have her STMR unless you STMR Mogled it. So she's using a single copy of Terra's sword. That's Neo Vision Terra's sword, and she's using Black Roselia. This is the same combo our EX+3 Terra will run, just so we have the most fair comparison here. And something else I'd like to mention is I'm using Yuna's Clothes, which is best in slot probably for Faris, as this provides 20% evocation magic. Keep in mind, the wording is pretty bad on the Gumi side of things. This wording here boosts parameters of espers evoked by 20%, and it has to be this unspecific to boost evocation magic. If it states boosts parameters of espers and lists a couple of espers, this is not evo magic. It's only evo magic if it states this. Alright, rest of it should look very familiar. I'm using her own Trust Master. You don't need this. If you have her STMR, you can forego this and use Duty to the World, which you should be using for Terra anyway. And you'd then have 20% more evo magic. You'd lose the 30 but gain 50, meaning net 20% more evo damage. You'd be at 190 but still keep the 290% esper damage. You'd be losing 50 from swapping out Terra's STMR, but gain 50 from equipping Duty to the World. And going for 2 of her STMRs, you'd gain another 50% evo damage or evo magic, which is the lower one, and you'd get to 290 esper damage and 240 evo damage. And you'd lose a little bit, 30% LB damage, but the evo magic or evo damage, as it's stated over here, that is the most important part. It would increase the damage more than you'd lose from the LB boost. And as you can see already, this is exactly the flip side of Terra. Terra has full evo damage, but less so esper damage, if I'm not mistaken entirely, but we'll see just in a minute. So yeah, they need almost the same gear, but the weapon slots are different and do different things. The rest of it, pretty standard, and she's obviously using her own vision card. The shift form really doesn't matter. You could gear this towards esper fill if you want to use Saldria's ability in a Brave Shift, but you have the absolute free choice what you want to do here. You could equip her for LB Fill, for example. You could equip her with Equip Staff, have her on Dispel Duty, just like we're doing with Terra in her base form usually. You could give her 10,000 needles for a stack of Mirage on demand. It's really up to you. Okay. And now let's load up the other team. That is going to be the Fire Team. Oops, that was the wrong team. That is wrong team again. This is the correct one. And it's the Fire Terra team. So nothing really changed regarding Mastermind Zone, as you can see. Nothing changed with Lightning other than me swapping the hand of the weapon. And here's the kicker. We are starting off with Infernal Fire Rain in his base form. And he's wearing Neo Vision Rain's STMR for the 10% fire amplification. He sadly does not have an own amplification to fire, so he needs an outside source, which is going to be the weapon. If you don't have the NV Rain STMR, you can use Kuja STMR, but you have to use Honorable Rod Arts Materia to do so. There's 2 ways to do this. Then his Brave Shift. Fair warning, this assumes you have 3 Terra STMRs, or 2 at least, where one of it is going to be on Infernal Fire Rain. I know this might be not applicable, and this would cripple the damage a little bit if you don't use Terra's sword, but we are assuming best cases here. So yeah, Terra's sword Dagambantine. You need to use Mobius Ring for this, by the way, so you can equip 2 one-handed weapons, otherwise Rain cannot do this. And yeah, I gave him leftover gear from the evocation stuff I got. I got 3 Duty to the World, so might be a little bit harder. I had a little bit too many Lunar Freyas lying around. And the rest of it is just Trust Masters, or I believe all of this is Trust Masters only. And he's using Saul's Vision card. Now, I do have another copy of Terra Vision card, but her good level 10 passive does not apply to Rain. So, worthless. And Rain is, he's not even capped on magic, as you can see. It's sadly not entirely possible to do so. And he's only got 80 Evo damage or Evo magic and 200 Esper damage. Or, no, this is Esper magic or Evo magic, and this is Evo damage. And 100 LB damage. So he's just really chipping in damage, probably not going to do much. Last gen, no changes at all. Terra, no changes or nothing here to be really curious about, but her Brave Shift, pretty much you know it by now, as you can see. And like I mentioned earlier, we are going for parity, meaning she's using her own STMR and Black Roselia, just so we have the most fair comparison here. And yeah, the rest of it should look familiar to you. Nothing really to worry about. And let's see, her stats are, yeah, like I mentioned, it's the reverse of Faris. Faris has more Esper damage or evocation magic, but less Evo damage, and Terra is the other way around. She has less Esper damage or Evo magic than she has Evo damage. Alright. So that pretty much shows you the gear, and now let's check out the damage and who comes out on top. Alright, let's dive right in and see what we can do. Like I said before, we're gonna shift Infernal Fire Rain on his very first turn. We're gonna activate his Blaze Grunt Shield. Again, totally unnecessary, you don't need to. LB gauge is filled anyway at the beginning of the fight. You're gonna Disaster of Savior Soul's Lightning. This is a turn 4 clear. Mastermind Zorn is going to Furnace Flames himself. Last gen, you'd ideally want to use Gleaming Azure Blade, or you could Flaming and Gleaming twice to fill LB gauge. Now, in this case, all is full. You could then use Rallying Cry with Terra, for example, which would be a nice way to fill LB gauge even more. Now on your second turn, as you can see, you still have one more turn cooldown on Fire Beast Sword Dance, but that's fine. We're gonna Ifrit Esper Field anyway. So let's do this. And at this point, you're really hoping that your LB gauge is filled with lightning. So you'd use, and your Esper gauge is, not Esper gauge, your LB gauge with last gen is filled sufficiently for Father Sunborn. So Father Sunborn's Complete Awakening and Gleaming in this very order. Now Terra would still use her LB fill skill, for example, Rallying Try, nothing else. Lightning would LB on this very turn, mainly for Ifrit, Rain and Terra, 90% Spirit Break. Now the dummy cannot be broken to anything, sadly, so we don't see it, but this is on a hypothetical base for a Dark Vision boss, right? And with Mastermind Zone, you'd critical of nobody yet. You could also fill LB gauge pretty much. Now keep in mind, we do have 2 Rallying Tries now. If you're a long-term or mid-term player, long-term player, you'd have had Mont Leonis once, and with the current War of Divisions collab event, you can get Rallying Try, the line ensemble insignia, whatever it's called, a second time, which is pretty sweet. Now it's turn 3, everyone's gonna get ready, meaning you could use Blaze of Grandshield again, Fire Beast Sword Dance, and Summon Flames. On Lightning, you will use ATB Charge to fill her LB gauge again. Last turn, he is already good to go. We used all the necessary things last turn, so he was Gleaming at Soul Blade 3 times to fill LB gauge, especially his own. Terra would now shift and use her stuff, Transburst, Power Release Fire twice. And Mastermind Zorn is going to critical off of Lightning, which makes things easier. She increases attack and magic by 300%. You can element himself, you don't need to. He has 3 more turns to go on his imbue. And if you wanted to steal killers, you could do this instead of the elemental mirror, for example. That's all fine. And lastly, you would share all of it. So as you can see, he still got all the things. Let's get it all. And there you go. We are done. Again, if there were killers, so to speak, you could also steal them instead of using elemental mirror on himself. And on this very last turn, since he's going to Brave Shift back to the base form, Infernal Fire Rain it is, you're gonna burst. So Infernal Fire Rain LBs, Terra LBs, last gen shifts and LBs. In a Dark Vision scenario, you would have had Edgar, for example, already being in the air and ready to drop. You're gonna shift Lightning and LB. And in a super ideal scenario, you would have already had one more stack of, or you would have the Lightning amplification from Lightning from a previous LB. This is just to showcase what is possible with this team. And we're gonna do the same for the Faris team as well. And Mastermind Zone would be using triple absolute mirror of equity. And this is how you do this. Again, you're gonna send in Terra first and then send in Mastermind Zone, Lightning, and Infernal Fire Rain immediately afterwards. I will show you the correct timings for the chaining on Lightning's Limit Burst, because I know some of you have trouble chaining Lightning's Limit Burst with other Absolute Mirror of Equity chainers. The reason is she is true double handing while the other ones are dual wielding. But there's a trick to this. I will show you how to do this properly at the end of the video. Alright, so Terra goes first, as per usual. Which one is the correct macro? This one. So wait, send the rest in. Good cap. And there we go. So let's check the damage. 26 billion. Sounds about right. This is how you burst on a fire team of Terra. Shouldn't be too unfamiliar to you. I guess you guys probably saw Sinsar's video on Dark Courier last month or a couple of weeks ago. This is just the same strat with Lightning instead of, say, Van. Nothing too surprising, I would guess. All right, so let's make a quick cut. Let me load up the wind amplification team with Faris and Bards, and we'll see each other again. So let's keep in mind we did 26 billion. All right, let's do this with our wind team. Generally speaking, there's 2 ways to approach this. One, and this is the one I'll be going for, is a limit burst with 4 units, including Bards. The other way is to power up Bards' move Brave Blade via job level gained, 2, 3 mastered. You'd LB in base form, you'd use his abilities such as Spellblade and Fragments of Inner Courage. This takes roughly 5 turns, and in turn 6 you would then limit burst. Not limit burst, but triple Brave Blade, and weave this into Zorn's and Lightning's LB, or not Zorn's LB, but Zorn's triple MOA chain and Lightning's LB. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go the probably easiest and most efficient way, use Bards LB, because it actually hits harder. It's a 135 modifier attack, as you can see. Come on, show it. 135 modifier, which is pretty good, but you have to powered his move or his LB by 100% through his Brave Shifted LB. Now, since we are emulating a Dark Visions fight, it is highly unlikely that you would be able to LB twice in a row, even though his LB cost is not high, but nobody gets this many LB crystals on one unit. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna LB with Bards here on turn 1. This could be any turn throughout the fight in Dark Visions, where you just prepare to get ready. So, Bards on our very first turn here is going to LB, which also conveniently imbues the whole team with wind. Lightning, as we are preparing to burst on turn 3, is also going to LB. Now, the training dummy does not get broken to spirit, so this 90% spirit break doesn't apply here, but again, emulating Dark Visions fight, this is for Faris mainly. We are also assuming that the boss has been broken to defenses before that, meaning through Lightning's disaster spell, for example. Mastermind Zone has an option here. If you are wearing an item such as Lion Emblem, you could Rallying Cry here for the team, and that'd be good to go. Last gen is going to complete Awakening and fill some LB gauge, provide some crystal drops for both Bards and Lightning. And Faris is also going to get ready Pirates Ahoy 250 LB buff and Blade of Courage to also fill some crystals to the party, mainly Lightning and Bards. As you can see, Bards already filled up a lot of crystals. Lightning too. This would be an easy LB fill. Yeah, as you can see, Ray of Light would have been guaranteed his LB on the very next turn or at the end of this turn. Now with Lightning, the same applies here. We'd use ATB charge. This would have filled her LB gauge entirely, and we'd be able to use her LB on turn 3 regardless. Now Warrior of Light is going to now amplify wind to the whole team, 5 turns duration. And if you're facing the planned boss of the upcoming Dark Vision, you're going to use Courage to face adversity, Beast and Plant Killer 100%, unless you're using Mazurka, she has 150%, that's a little bit better. But I feel like Mazurka doesn't fit in this team. Ideally, your 6th unit would be, his name? Edgar, who deals just way more damage. But then again, 50% more killers for the whole team. It's going to be debatable what's better. Is it better to use Edgar, who just mainly deals way more damage? He also provides Spear Imperil for, say, last gen and Bards. Bards can use spears, so he's a contender to wear spears, for example, and make use of the Spear Imperil. So this is something to take into account when building this team. But anyway, Courage to face adversity. And the last one is mainly for crystal drops, unless you're already good to go. But yeah, let's just use this. Now Mastermind Zone is going to Reflector. He's going to critical off of Lightning for the 300% attack and magic buff. Critical on Bards for the killers. And spread all of this. So let's wait for this to finish. There we go. Alright, Faris shifts back into a base form and uses Arrow Cannon, which imperils the boss by 132 wind, which is quite handy. Yeah, with all the crystal drops, we would have easily filled Lightning's and Bards' LB by now. And last gen has one off turn. He can cast Gleaming Azure Blade for additional LB fill or crystal drops. Yeah, alright. And now we're pretty much good to go. And just a small point at this, or a small, what's it called? A tangent or random tangent at this point. I'm going to make a quick cut because I don't want to go through all of this again. The chain tends to break on some stupid occasions. I am not quite sure what causes this. I know this chain works perfectly. I think this has something to do with Faris hitting at a spot within the absolute mirror of equity chain where it tends to break. I'm not quite sure how to time this correctly just yet. But it is what it is. So Baris, exactly. Baris and Lightning both will be in their base form. Mastermind Zone is training triple absolute mirror of equity. I can't English today. Last gen shifts and LBs. And Faris also LBs. Now let me make a cut so I don't have to talk all this again, about all of this again. And I'll be right back with the actual kill. Okay, that didn't take too long. So the way to do this properly is you're gonna start off with Faris. The reason is, and you have to start with Faris, is that she applies the wind amplification field for all the physical damage dealers. And you have to make sure that the text over here in the top, at the top of the screen is visible. That is your visual cue that the amplification field is up and running and that everyone is affected. Only then do you start to chain your chainers. Now I have a macro and you should have one too, to immediately send the left hand side. So for me this is Q, W and E. I do have a macro, like I said, to have them go all three at the same time. Now Bartz's LB takes a while to load, to unwind. This means you have to send him right with everyone else or this fails. Alright, and what I also suggest is that you actually watch her limit burst CG. You have enough time to prepare to click the macro, you have enough time to wait for the visual cue. It eases up things. It's not as stressful as clicking, immediately switching to the macro, etc, etc. So now is the time to click. Let's send in last, and this should have been it. Yeah. All right. So 26.6 billion. I did a test run. That test run netted me 27 billion. But all in all, as you can see, this strat works and it deals more damage than a Terra team. I think this is pretty telling, and this is an EX+1 Faris that is not best in slot geared. She's far from best in slot. She's missing 2 of her STMRs and she's also missing Duty to the World. Keep that in mind. With Terra, on the other hand, we had only 1 piece missing for her best in slot, and that was a second copy of her weapon. Meaning, gearing Faris with best in slot gear will turn out to be way higher damage. And I'm wondering whether I should wait for tomorrow, meaning Sunday, and show off the same strat, the same approach, the same team, the same way at EX+2 with one of her STMR. Because I'm quite sure that we are going to see 30 billion damage and that blow the fire team out of the water. I'm not quite sure whether I'm gonna do this or just upload the video right away, just to show this is entirely possible. I mean, I was asked about EX+1 versus EX+3 Terra, and this goes to show this is in favor of the Wind Team and EX+1 Faris for that matter. But I'm wondering, should I not? I think I will leave it at that, and rest assured, with Faris at EX+2 and 1 STMR already, she's going to outperform Terra. By a lot. Not she on herself though, it's more that the whole team is going to outperform the fire team. So yeah, I hope you guys liked this video. I'm not gonna do this Faris EX+2. I mean, if this is the median damage and it only goes up from here on out with Faris at EX+2, or I guess you guys get the memo that this is the way to go. Alright, so I hope this clarified some things at how strong a Wind team with the Faris and Bart's combo can get. And yeah, it was super interesting for me too. So thank you to the guy in the comments who suggested that video idea or gave me the idea for this. It was fun to do. And yeah, I hope this helped you guys too. Have a nice day. Have a nice afternoon, morning, wherever you're from, and we'll see each other very soon again. Bye bye.